Now, Cedric, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So please go ahead with your view. In 5 minutes, it's okay?
Thank you. I hope I can reach 5 minutes. I can think 10 minutes or 9 minutes would be more appropriate, but I'm gonna do my best. Yeah. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a professor of political science at Université Internationale de Libreville in Gabon, where my contribution is on the G20 Summit Declaration on provisions on migration and refugees. I want to talk about the kind of hypocrisy that I noticed within the declaration. What perspective of a developing world? This presentation will be sectioned into 2 parts. The first one, I want to deal with migration as an international issue. And the second point will be migration and human rights. According to the declaration of the G20 Bali leaders in November 2022, we can view the many issues that are covered by the summit. This presentation deals with theory and practice as regards the implementation of immigration policies within G20 member states and how these policies actually affect the developing world. Which countries are more likely to have candidates for legal or illegal migration? Now, my first point, migration as an international issue. This provision actually drew my attention within the declaration. I want to make sure what is said within the declaration is actually what is happening in practice. All along history, people always wanted to migrate for a number of reasons. But the common reason for people leaving their countries of birth is that their security was threatened and could no longer live in their former place. Today, there is not really a state that does not face the issue of migration. It is impossible for a state not to have migrants in its territory. It is also important to note that migrants who are legal residents and are doing legal business activities or have legal jobs represent a source of great revenue in the host country if we take into consideration the contribution to the economy. For instance, migrants will have a status of legal resident, pay a lot of money for taxes as regards those who own businesses. And it should also be considered that the payment of the resident cards every year help the receiving of a so-called receiving state to make a lot of profit. In this standpoint, their contribution to the economy of a receiving country is not negligible. The problem is when it comes to illegal migration. And the G20 summit explicitly addresses the issue. It should be regarded that no state in the international community is free from the migration problematic. Not all states face, of course, refugees problems. That is, people who want to go to another country as they need a refuge because their human security is endangered in the case of religious or in political persecutions or even natural disaster. However, all states face the problem of migration on the solid difference that we have states that are mostly dreamt countries or nations for the people of state where most candidates come from. My second point, I'm going to my second point, I want to deal with human rights with regarding immigration. The right to security is a basic right, a basic human right. People have a right to migrate if their legitimate reason do not put at risk the security of the host states. A number of G20 countries are the potential receiving states of people who like to migrate to their territories in order to change and better their life. The problem is that in some G20 countries, immigration policies are very strict, and especially for people who decide to illegally cross the borders of their states. Even in this condition, these illegal migrants deserve a human treatment. and not to undergo police brutality. And let me take you a concrete case within a member of my family. I have a relative, an uncle who went to Turkey in 2019. He went there for economic opportunities. He went to Turkey and entered Turkey legally. Then in his third year in Turkey was 2022, the police refused to renew his resident card. And one morning was just moving, working the street, and the police came and took him to what he described as a camp. But in reality, he said it pretty much looked like a prison. And it was very far from the city. They took him, he wasn't the only person. He was taken there to that place, and it was a place that actually you would not get out of there until probably you die. So the good news is that he had our ambassador's phone number in Ankara. So he called the ambassador. He managed to see somebody there and said, please, I would like to call my embassy. When he referred the issue to our ambassador in Ankara, our ambassador immediately called the police and told the police to immediately release all the citizens or nationals of Gabon, that is my home country. And this is exactly what the police did. And he came, and he was deported or repatriated last month. Thank you, God, that it came safe. And I want to make a comparison here with some police brutality. When we talk about migration within the declaration of a G20 states, but the declaration is not actually what is happening there. Of course, I do not encourage illegality, but what I state is that if people illegally enter your country, they deserve to be treated as human beings. I would like to point out that except for migration between European countries regarding their citizens and migration between Western states wherein we see fewer complications for visas or job sponsorships to foreign workers. For people of developing countries to even legally enter Western or advanced or developed nations within the G20 state, there are many complications, many barriers. In the case of people who flee poverty in their countries of origin and who are educated and seek employment, they are most of the time refused a visa entry because of tough immigration laws in potential receiving states. I consider that if someone can participate in the development of the advancement of the country, you should give him a chance. And another aspect, I do not mean that there are no migration movement between the countries of the developing world. What I'm trying to point out is the thematic of human rights. People have a right to come to your nation if they believe they would be happy there. And I would like to say that the majority of people who want to go to the G20 state come from the developing world, developing countries. Before I conclude, I would like to quote some of the parts of the declaration, the provisions on refugees and migration that are termed hypocrisy. And I quote, we reaffirm our commitment to support the full inclusion of migrants, including migrant workers, refugees, in our recovery efforts in the spirit of international cooperation and in line with national policies, legislation, and circumstances, ensuring full respect for human rights. I would like to insist right here and before I conclude, I have taken the case of one of my relatives, my uncle, who was brutalized by the Turkish police and was, if he had not the phone number of our political authorities, our embassy, he would have stayed there. So it's a kind of hypocrisy. I see some kind of hypocrisy between theory and practice. So I will stop there. I will stop there. So I will stop there. Thank you for your time, and thank you